Step away from the mahogany, sir. This lobby is for registered guests, and quite frankly, you're cluttering the aesthetic. The voice belonged to Reginald Thorne, the head concierge of the Grand Continental. He didn't just use his words to insult, he used his physical presence to intimidate. As Elias Sterling approached the gold-trimmed check-in desk, Reginald lunged forward from behind the marble counter. With a sharp, aggressive sweep of his hand, he slapped Elias's leather portfolio off the desk, sending the documents scattering across the classic plush carpet. "I have a reservation under Sterling, Reginald," Elias said, his voice a low, vibrating hum that seemed to resonate through the massive crystal chandeliers hanging above. He stood perfectly still, his charcoal cashmere tailored suit catching the light with a subtle, expensive sheen. "We don't have Sterling on the books for people who walk in off the street in a hoodie," Reginald sneered, ignoring the fact that the hoodie was a $3,000 designer piece layered under Elias's blazer. Reginald stepped around the counter, invading Elias's personal space. He didn't stop at the verbal assault. He reached out and grabbed the sleeve of Elias's charcoal suit, twisting the fabric as he began to physically manhandle him toward the heavy brass revolving doors. "I've spent 30 years curate the atmosphere of this hotel," Reginald hissed, his face inches from Elias's. "I know a nobody when I see one. You're not a guest, you're a loiterer. Now, get out before I have my security team process you for trespassing. We have real elite coming in for the gala, and we don't need you polluting the view." Around them, the elite guests in vibrant sapphire blue gowns, mustard yellow linen suits, and deep emerald green blazers stopped their conversations. The woman in sapphire let out a sharp, mocking laugh into her crystal flute, while the man in the emerald blazer nodded his approval, adjusting his gold watch as if watching a common nuisance being cleared away. Elias stopped his movement at the door. He didn't fight back. He simply looked at the hand Reginald had clamped onto his sleeve. "You've spent 30 years building this atmosphere, Reginald? That's interesting. Because in 30 seconds you're going to be a memory." Elias pulled a slim, black encrypted device from his pocket and tapped a single command that made the hotel's digital guest board flash a brilliant, blinding white. "Execute Clause 8.3, Elias whispered. "Immediate acquisition of the Continental Group. Trigger the professional malpractice liquidation. I want the keys, the payroll, and the staff contracts in my name before the next guest checks in. Thanks for the support, we couldn't do this without you. Subscribe for free to help us keep bringing you more stories. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments. Now back to the story." The high-pitched chime of the hotel's central server echoed through the classic lobby at exactly 3:17 p.m. It wasn't the sound of a new guest checking in, it was the sound of a total structural shift. Reginald Thorne's hand suddenly went limp on Elias's sleeve as his own communication earpiece erupted with a frantic, distorted screech. The massive digital displays behind the check-in desk, which usually showed idyllic scenes of the Mediterranean, flickered and died. They were replaced by a single glowing white crest, the seal of Sterling Global. "What did you do to the system?" Reginald stammered, his face turning a sickly, translucent gray. "The servers are locked. We can't even open the room safes." From the executive wing, the general manager, Marcus Vane, came sprinting across the marble floor. He wasn't wearing his usual mask of practiced hospitality. He was drenched in a cold, panicked sweat. He didn't look at the socialites in their mustard and emerald finery. He ran straight to Elias and bowed so deeply it looked like a collapse. "Mr. Sterling, we just received the emergency buyout notification from the board." Marcus gasped, his voice trembling. "The entire Continental Group? It was acquired 10 minutes ago in a private equity sweep. What happened? Why is there a liquidation order on the staff contracts?" Elias straightened his charcoal suit, smoothing the fabric where Reginald had gripped him. "Your head concierge just decided that the aesthetic of this hotel didn't include its new owner, Marcus. He didn't just deny me service. He laid hands on me and attempted to physically eject me from my own property." Marcus turned to Reginald, his eyes filled with a terrifying, cold fury. Reginald stood frozen, his jaw hanging open as he looked at the man he had just called a nobody. You're the owner?" Reginald whispered, his voice cracking. "Clause 8.3 of the new acquisition bylaws," Elias said, his voice a surgical strike that cut through the silence of the lobby. "The zero-tolerance conduct trigger. Any employee, regardless of tenure, who engages in physical hostility or discriminatory battery against a principal of the firm is subject to immediate, non-negotiable termination. Furthermore, because you were the lead officer on duty, the entire management layer present during the assault is being liquidated for failure to intervene. The realization hit the lobby like a physical shock. The woman in the sapphire gown, who had been mocking Elias moments ago, suddenly tucked her head and tried to disappear into the shadows of the crystal chandeliers. The man in the emerald blazer turned pale, realizing the loiterer he had laughed at now held the deed to his favorite penthouse. "Reginald Marcus, you have 10 minutes to clear your desks," Elias said, his voice dropping to a low, final hum. "The elite atmosphere you were so worried about is officially under new management. I'm turning this hotel into a flagship for the Sterling Foundation. We're going to start by hiring people who know the difference between prestige and prejudice." The handshake collapse was absolute. At that moment, the lights in the lobby dimmed, and a team of new security, dressed in sharp, matching charcoal suits, stepped forward to escort the former staff to the door. Reginald Thorne didn't leave with his 30 years of prestige. He left with a cardboard box, walking past the brass revolving doors for the last time. As Elias watched them leave, he didn't feel triumph, only the quiet weight of a man who knew that true hospitality begins with respect. Because power doesn't need to roar. It just needs to walk away. If you believe that the way you treat people is your real resume, like this video and share it. Tell us in the comments, would you have fired the entire management team? Subscribe now for more stories of unstoppable dignity.